Someone began to applaud. He was not sure who. Eidolon turned and surveyed the tight confines of the pit. Now that the rift had burned itself out, the other warriors had spread out around the edges of it. Eidolon stood at the center, turning his gaze from one warrior to the next, seeking whoever was clapping, eager to cease this mockery. But none of them were moving. Eidolon turned. The sound rang strangely in the warp-worn space. Nightmares and echoes clung to every surface, resounding where they should be, taking form like dancing witchfire. Light and shadow scrabbled across the obsidian-bladed edges of the pit, flickering and pulsating as though stirred by some great wind. He followed the sound to its source, and his breath was caught in his throat. The armored figure was tall and lithe. The war plate that clung to him had been forged with superlative skills, work that spoke of a long toil of a master craftsman. The apex of humanity's artificers. White hair cascaded down his shoulders like an avalanche of the purest snowfall. His skin was alabaster, and yet it shone from within like a captive star. His eyes were cruel and beautiful, and they sparkled with a seductive madness. Worlds had fallen into those eyes and torn themselves apart, all for the smallest fragment of his regard. He was art itself, a painting or a sculpture wrought by a savant and given life, like the gallivants of ancient myth. Yet he burned with vitality. Biology and spirituality had intersected perfectly to form him. It was the Primarch, Fulgrim. What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40K. In this one, I'm reading an excerpt from Eidolon, the Ulrich Hammer, that has a pretty interesting passage between Eidolon and none other than Fulgrim. When it comes to Fulgrim, I think he has one of the more interesting stories of all the Primarchs, because he has this friendship with the Primarchs that leads to his downfall, all thanks to Slaanesh, and then he becomes a demon prince, and there's clones, there's just so much to Fulgrim that I feel like his story in and of itself is one that really needs to be put on the big screen. But anyway, let's continue on with this battle between the first captain and the Primarch. Fulgrim the Phoenician himself looked down upon Eidolon and ceased his applause. "My son," he said. There was venom layered within his voice. Eidolon forced himself up, teeth gritted. There was pain, yes, but pain was his dear companion. It sang in his blood and pirouetted in the soul. Without his pain, he had thought that he was nothing. Now that he has passed through the fire and he knew better, he knew his own truth. "Father," Eidolon said. He could barely look at Fulgrim. After images stalked the Primarch as he moved, heat hazes dodging his every step. Sometimes he was the great illuminator, as he had always been, and yet, at other times, the serpent of the apocalypse. Too many arms moving in impossible rhythm, each one carrying a blade from another dead culture. He blinked away the demonic vision and regarded his father as he had been in his true life. We will not win wars to come simply to become the strongest. Our wars will be won because we are better. We shall make war in such glory and stupor that it shall burn to simply look upon us. Upon Terra's soil we shall be reborn in truth. The Emperor's children shall come home at last, tear him from his tower, and break him underfoot. And yet we squander our resources. No, Eidolon. I've spent the lives of my legion as I see fit. What are a few more bodies in the ground when you are, as a whole, sharper now than you were before?" Two of Fulgrim's arms grasped Eidolon, one by the arm and another too braced him up against his breastplate. "You feel it, do you not, resting from the ashes of your soul and taking wing? I have given you this gift, new strength, new determination. And you think this is a gift? You would have made me into a mere thing of the warp, your lesser and your shadow, had I not chosen another path." Fulgrim smirked. "Oh, I cared not which side triumphed. Be you bound by flesh or ascendant in spirit, you would have brought me much amusement anyhow. All the more reason for me to set my own fate. If our fathers are uncaring, all the better to spite them. You always were a contradictory child, Fulgrim tutted. The demon Primarch shook his head, and his black eyes flared suddenly with disappointed anger. Have I cultivated too much wasted potential? Sons who never live up to my expectations. Perhaps I should have tried harder to shepherd you all to your destinies, or simply skinned more of you alive and made my throne from your bones. Eidolon shook his head. Your capriciousness did not leave you when you ascended, Father. No, far from it. Your mercurial paranoia and desperation for approval have only accelerated, fueled and fattened by the warp. It has seeped into your heart and swelled with the gardens of your own fallings, crops of venal pettiness and fickle madness, bursting at the sea of your soul. The mania passed as readily as it had come. One of Fulgrim's hands drifted up to stroke along Eidolon's unmarred cheek. He wore no gauntlets, but the passage of the clawed fingers left lines of fire down his skin, as potent as a power-fielded claw. Rippling electrostatic aftershocks trickled through his flesh, setting the nerves ablaze and making his face twitch and tick. Perhaps. Eidolon forced the words out. We are all the products of fathers who cared too little until it was too late. Fulgrim's hand snapped up and seized Eidolon's hair, yanking his head back with such fury that vertebrae ground against one another. Eidolon hissed with pain, and the Primarch didn't even flinch, instead leaning closer to savor the discharge of power. Impressive, he whispered, so close that Eidolon could still hear him. The Lord Commander's Primus eyes snapped from side to side, trying to look anywhere but at the burning incarnation of the Dark Prince's might. All around them, the third millennial had closed in. None knew what to do. Weapons were held at the ready, but to what end? He could see the conflict warring with them, slaves to two masters. Some of the warriors had their eyes locked on the floor, unable or unwilling to regard Fulgrim in his true form. Look at me. Look at me, the Primarch snapped as he shook Eidolon. Eidolon's eyes focused back upon him. A forked purple tongue slid from between Fulgrim's lips. Excellent. You are capable of listening then, yet so disobedient and willful. You will never forgive me, and you never will. I don't deny it, Fulgrim snarled. I have given you such gifts, such opportunities, Eidolon. Why do you spurn me? You could not escape me, and I bear a father's love and a father's failings. I do not deny this, but I will not suffer your mewling disdain. Not here, not now. Terra is before us, Terra. There will be no greater conflict, no truer moment, no opportunity than when we have the throne world's throat beneath our boots. My father's precious palace laid bare and broken. Imagine the opportunity there, to see him brought low and broken. I will be there, Eidolon panted as he kicked out. Fulgrim lifted him bodily and let the blows rain against his breastplate of undulating flesh. The coils tightened and Fulgrim grinned. If I allow it, he sneered. If you forgive me, I took your life and I had Fabius give it back. I was the lash and the rod at your back, and now look at you. You held a third of the Legion to task. You ran down the Khan and his savages. You were the first to come to me at Eleanor when I called upon my sons. Now, all I ask is that you forgive and serve. You killed me, Eidolon snapped. His voice boomed off of the unnaturally smooth walls and staggered the gathering knot of warriors. Yet, Fulgrim barely flinched. The Primarch's baleful radiance flared. The unclean light caught upon stray pools of blood, making them crimson fluid writhe with gaudy illumination. Shapes moved with them, faces passing up through and against the window. Impossible breath fogged at the veil between worlds, taunted by their master, yet drawn so very close to be his handmaids or confidants. Eidolon tasted the stink of the Phoenician, drank it in through his nose and mouth, every last pore open to absorb the pheromone reek of this demigod. It would have driven Eidolon away had he not been held in place, pinned like a specimen, burning beneath the lamplight of his father's attention and affection. You killed me, Eidolon repeated, his voice low and quaking. All on a whim and for nothing. I had you brought back. That was an afterthought, yet more of your fickleness and vanity. Eidolon's throat pulsed with sympathetic anger, and he reached up, seizing hold of Fulgrim's grasping arms and forcing them back. He dropped, hitting the ground, almost going to his knees. Eidolon surged up as his throat aligned and dilated. A scream erupted from him, forced out and hurled against his master. It was near volcanic as its fury, a pyroclastic body blow that drove the Primarch back. Flesh struck stone with a wet, hissing slap. The demon's tail flailed through the air even as his torso slid back upright, leaving an acid smear like a slug's trail behind him. I am not your slave or your puppet, Eidolon snarled. His hand closed around the discarded haft of Glory Aetna and swept the weapon up. It swung in a hissing arc and discharged lightning like the trails of a comet. Fulgrim slithered out of the way, his body going flat against the ground as the hammer slammed into the stonework, gouging a fresh crater. And look at you now, a man of your own will, a soldier of intent. Fulgrim ducked and dodged the second and the third attack, then brought his hands up. Swords shimmered into being, their gilded edges catching the next strike, turning it aside. A storm of slashes rained down upon Eidolon, an intricate pattern of blows that each missed him, pitting him between a web of sword blades and trapping him against the wall and the ground. The blades flexed barely a micron, and Eidolon hissed. Pain saturated him until his nerves sang and blood ran from the barely perceptible wounds in his plate and flesh. You cannot imagine, Fulgrim said, and drew himself closer, close enough that Eidolon could smell the sugar and cyanide odor of his breath. I could be the death that you so desire, and at my hand you could cross that veil once more, and be mere prey for those who wait beyond. My beloved Nakari is there, and my master's favored handmaiden. All those who serve the will and want of the Dark Prince would have their turn with you, my sweet Eidolon. What is your answer now? One of the swords evaporated in a hiss of opiate smoke. Fulgrim's clawed hand shot forward and seized Eidolon's chin, forcing him to look directly into the piteous eyes of his master. He could see the madness and the desperation screaming there, flickering about in the barest memory of the man Fulgrim had been, before the monstrosity of his vice and ego had subsumed him forever. I will lead my men as I always have, Eidolon said. At last I will lead them to Terra, and I will do it for myself alone, for the glory that is due to me. Now, was that so difficult? Fulgrim laughed. He flung his many arms wide, each one poised at a different angle, an ancient avatar of divinity given new life and potency. Once perhaps I might have kept you alive merely because it pleased me, but you have wrought a wonder here. That much is true. Fulgrim spun around and turned his attention outwards, almost as one of the gathered warriors who sank to their knees. There was little other choice in the face of it, the storm of Fulgrim's love, the air cut by the knives of his fickle affections. Only the cacophony remained standing, priming their weapons. Sons of the Third, children of the Emperor, hear me. Your master calls. You have fought and bled for me, and I love each and every one of you for your service, just as I cherish the services of your Lord Commander Primus. He paused as though mulling over Eidolon's full and self-given title, before continuing. He has struggled on your behalf, leading boldly and bravely. He pleases me, just as your service has pleased him. Mischief danced in the eyes of Fulgrim. Somehow it didn't matter that he was now a warp-swollen monster, a looming and many-armed serpent god. Fulgrim commanded their attention as readily as he had on the parade ground, or as they were poised to swear an oath of moment. My son, Fulgrim murmured as he slithered forwards, arms reaching out in one motion to seize Eidolon, as though in some conspiratorial embrace. His sharply angled face slid next to Eidolon, his lips at the Lord Commander Primus's ear. This is the last time you disobey me. You have grown strong and proud, but next to me you are still nothing. Fulgrim's hands clenched and caressed, some drifting across the plates of Eidolon's armor where others held him fiercely. But with a gesture he could rip Eidolon limb from limb. "Try my patience again, and your great sacrifice will be in vain. Not even a dark prince will protect you from my wrath." Fulgrim pushed himself away and turned from Eidolon, arms upraised. Black lightning coursed along the veins of an outstretched limb as he lifted skyward, haloed by violet flame. The Primarch's physical shell broke apart, becoming a rain of gold, a flutter of rose petals, a sudden rush of perfumed air. And with that being said, that is the end of this excerpt between Fulgrim and his first captain, Eidolon. So here we see the love and hate relationship between these two. Eidolon has perished and he was brought back to life, and all to just serve under Fulgrim, not for some second chance at honor or a second chance at being the warrior he always thought he was meant to be, but instead to just listen to the puppet of the gods. And we see that Fulgrim is still being the Fulgrim we all know, just a slithering, slimy, self-absorbed puppet. And at the end of it all, we see that they are not eye to eye, but Eidolon has no choice but to obey. So that's all I got for this one, guys. So let me know if you have any other awesome excerpts between Primarch and their first captains. I know Angron and Karn have a ton, so if you guys want me to cover them, let me know in the comments below. But again, that's all I have for today. So as always, thank you for watching, listening, commenting, sharing, and liking. And as always, it's been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Oh, if you could put my